Breaking news. The truth they tried to bury has finally exploded into the light. For weeks, whispers and rumors swirled online, fans speculated, and the Harris family stayed silent. But now, shocking new evidence has emerged. King Harris's leaked medical report is out, and what it reveals is nothing short of horrifying. Forget everything you thought you knew about his ICU battle, because this changes the story completely. The leaked files confirm one thing beyond all doubt. Poison was found in King Harris's bloodstream. Not just a trace, not just a possibility, confirmed toxic compounds injected into his body while he was supposed to be under the safest and most careful medical supervision imaginable. The most disturbing part? The very doctors who were trusted to save him allegedly hid the evidence. Yes, you heard that correctly. According to the leak, King didn't simply collapse by accident. He was poisoned inside the walls of a hospital ICU. It all began with a single report, an internal blood analysis that someone inside the hospital never intended to be seen by the Harris family, the public, or anyone outside of tightly restricted access. But, like all secrets, this one eventually slipped through the cracks. When the report surfaced, the details were chilling. King's bloodstream carried toxins that had been introduced deliberately. This wasn't food poisoning. This wasn't a bad reaction to medication. This was calculated, intentional, and deadly. The hospital tried to downplay it, but the report speaks for itself. High levels of toxic compounds detected in bloodstream. Source: foreign contamination. And then came the most devastating layer, a leaked audio confession from a nurse on staff the night of the poisoning. In the recording, her voice trembles as she admits through sobs, "I was paid to put something in his IV drip. They told me it was harmless. They swore it would calm him down. I didn't know it would do this. I didn't know it would kill him." That single confession was enough to shatter the internet and send millions of fans into outrage. How could this happen inside a hospital? How could a young man, fighting for his life, be betrayed by the very staff meant to protect him? When the Harris family learned of the leak, the devastation was immediate. Outside the hospital, cameras captured a broken TI as he lashed out in rage and grief. His voice cracked, his hands shook, but his words were clear. This wasn't a mistake. This was murder. They set up my son. His words cut through the noise like fire. No longer was this just speculation. No longer could it be dismissed as conspiracy talk. The father of King Harris was publicly declaring that his child had been poisoned inside a hospital bed. Those words ignited a firestorm that swept through the internet. On Twitter, hashtags like Justice for King and Hospital Conspiracy trended worldwide. Instagram was flooded with images of King hooked up to machines, accompanied by captions demanding accountability. TikTok users created breakdowns of every piece of leaked evidence, analyzing every word of the nurse's confession, every page of the toxicology report. It wasn't just fans anymore. Celebrities, activists, even journalists began calling for investigations. Something dark had unfolded inside those hospital walls, and the public wasn't going to let it slide. But if the confession and the blood report weren't enough to confirm foul play, then what came next sealed the case in the eyes of millions. A piece of grainy CCTV footage, leaked by an anonymous whistleblower from inside the hospital, appeared online. In the black and white clip, a shadowy, hooded figure is seen sneaking into King's ICU room in the dead of night. The figure stays inside for less than a minute before slipping silently back into the hallway. Hours later, King's condition spiraled out of control. The identity of the figure remains a mystery. The footage is too blurry, too dark to make out a face, but the symbolism is unmistakable. Online detectives are convinced that this was the moment the poison was delivered. Some argue the figure was a staff member in disguise. Others claim it was an outsider who gained access with inside help. Either way, the conclusion is chilling. Someone intentionally entered that room and left devastation behind. For King's mother, Tiny, the pain was unbearable. Witnesses described the moment she collapsed on the hospital floor, screaming that her baby was being murdered before her very eyes. Cameras captured every sob, every scream, every desperate cry. The footage of her anguish spread across the internet, and fans around the world echoed her heartbreak. People weren't just angry, they were horrified, because this wasn't a movie. This wasn't scripted drama. This was real life, unfolding in real time with millions watching. T.I., meanwhile, transformed his grief into fury. Standing in front of cameras, his voice shook with rage as he declared, "My son was poisoned. The hospital covered it up, and whoever did this, you will not sleep peacefully again." Those words went viral within hours, replayed millions of times across social platforms, shared by fans and celebrities alike. This wasn't just a father's grief. This was a war cry. Then came another revelation that deepened the controversy even further. Insiders claimed that 2 separate medical reports had been created the night King was admitted. The official report, the one given to the Harris family, showed nothing unusual. It suggested only routine complications. But the second report, the leaked one, told the real story. Toxic levels of poison were detected. The existence of 2 conflicting reports suggests something far worse than simple negligence. It suggests an active cover-up. To make matters even darker, a whistleblower claimed that multiple blood samples from King mysteriously disappeared from the hospital's lab. Those that remained were allegedly swapped out with clean samples to erase the evidence. The truth only survived because one terrified lab technician secretly saved a copy of the toxicology results onto a USB drive. That drive, against all odds, found its way into the hands of the media. Without that act of bravery, the truth might still be buried. As news spread, theories began multiplying across the internet. Some believe King was targeted as part of a music industry war, a warning shot meant to break T.I. and silence his family forever. Others argue it was financial, a setup where hospital staff were bribed by outside forces to carry out the attack. A growing number of people even whisper that government or political forces may have played a role, using King as a pawn in a much larger and darker game. What makes this story even more terrifying is that it might not have been the first attempt. Sources close to the family revealed that King had been experiencing strange, unexplained symptoms weeks before his hospitalization. Some now believe those were early signs of poisoning, failed attempts to take him down before the final devastating strike. Within minutes, the family's private tragedy became a public spectacle. Tiny, overwhelmed with grief, collapsed in the hospital hallway, her screams piercing through the sterile walls. A witness recorded the moment, and the clip spread online almost instantly. Millions watched her pain, and hashtags calling for prayers for King flooded social media. But beneath the wave of sympathy, darker rumors began to spread. Rumors suggesting this wasn't a random tragedy, but something far more sinister. Shortly after, a leaked medical report began circulating online, and what it revealed only deepened the mystery. King's injuries, it claimed, weren't the type you'd expect from a simple jailhouse scuffle. They included deep bruises with deliberate patterns, cuts that suggested sharp objects, and repeated trauma to specific areas. Medical experts who reviewed the leak described the injuries as systematic and even used the word torture. That word changed everything. Suddenly, this wasn't about a fight behind bars. It was about whether King had been deliberately targeted and punished. But the horror didn't stop there. A grainy audio clip soon surfaced, allegedly recorded from inside the prison where King was held before his collapse. In the muffled recording, a guard can be heard whispering that the order to step aside came from above. That one chilling line ignited a firestorm of speculation. Who was above? Who had the authority to allow such violence? And more importantly, who wanted King Harris silenced? As news outrage spread, another bombshell leak appeared, alleged surveillance footage from inside the ICU itself. The grainy black and white clip seemed to show two masked figures entering King's hospital room in the dead of night. One leaned toward his bed, appearing to tamper with the tubes connected to his fragile body, and the other stood guard at the door. The video cut off abruptly, but its implications were terrifying. If the footage was authentic, it meant that King's life wasn't only in danger behind bars, it was in danger even inside the hospital, surrounded by doctors, nurses, and supposed safety. The idea that attackers could move so freely from a jail cell to a hospital bed horrified the public. Atlanta residents gathered outside Grady Memorial in growing numbers, chanting demands for answers, holding candles and banners, and refusing to leave. Inside, the Harris family's nightmare deepened. T.I., once known for his defiance and strength, stood trembling before the cameras, pleading with the public and authorities to not let his son be taken. His hand shook, his voice cracked, and his face was streaked with tears. Clips of the rapper's grief spread like wildfire, capturing the rawest moment of a father fighting desperately against invisible enemies. But while many sympathized, others dragged up T.I.'s past, insisting that his family was cursed or that this was karma catching up. Social media became divided, with empathy and cruelty colliding in real time, feeding the spectacle.
Inside the ICU, doctors and nurses fought to keep King alive. Nurses reportedly worked shifts around the clock, some refusing to leave his side. Yet even among medical staff, whispers of fear circulated. Some spoke of missing security footage, unexplained interruptions in power to medical machines, and traces of an unidentified substance in King's bloodstream. A confidential hospital note hinted at possible poisoning, an idea that threw the public into frenzy. If something had been introduced into his system after he arrived at the hospital, it meant his enemies had followed him even into intensive care. The family was pulled into urgent consultations, forced to sign documents usually reserved for cases where doctors prepare for possible death. The weight of the situation shattered them. Tiny collapsed once again after hearing the prognosis, requiring medical attention herself. Word of her breakdown spread online, and the internet wept with her. Outside, the crowd of supporters grew restless. Protesters attempted to breach hospital security, chanting, "Protect King," until law enforcement had to fortify the building. Grady Memorial no longer looked like a hospital. It looked like a fortress under siege. Across the entertainment world, celebrities reacted with shock and anger. Some sent heartfelt prayers. Others issued thinly veiled accusations. Cardi B posted a tearful video saying no young man deserved this. Snoop Dogg spoke cryptically about how the industry targets children. Kanye West warned in a cryptic message that saying no to powerful people could bring punishment on an entire bloodline. These statements weren't just words, they were fuel. They added credibility to the idea that King Harris wasn't a victim of random violence, but of a larger, darker plan. As if the situation couldn't get darker, reports began to circulate that King Harris had flatlined inside the ICU. Unverified sources claimed he was declared clinically dead for nearly 2 minutes before doctors shocked his heart back into rhythm with electric paddles. That revelation devastated fans, who realized just how close T.I. and Tiny came to losing their son in real time. T.I.'s grief erupted into fury. Witnesses described him storming the ICU hallways, accusing hospital staff of murder rather than medicine. In one shocking moment, he smashed a chair against a wall, shouting that his son was being sabotaged. Security had to restrain him as footage of the confrontation leaked online, replayed millions of times across platforms. Meanwhile, Tiny's heartbreak became another viral clip. She was seen on her knees outside the ICU, clutching a rosary, begging God not to take her baby. The world watched these private, excruciating moments unfold in public, and millions cried with them. Then came another leak, this time from alleged hacker groups. They claimed to have accessed hospital records showing traces of foreign toxins in King's blood. They insisted he wasn't being saved, he was being finished. The leaked files spread online within minutes, adding to the chaos outside. Protesters screamed cover up and clashed with police. Tear gas filled the air. Live streams showed chaos in the streets of Atlanta as what began as candlelight vigils turned into scenes of near riot. 50 Cent accused unnamed industry figures of orchestrating the attack. Meek Mill tweeted that the next generation was being silenced before it could rise. Anonymous accounts suggested government involvement, while conspiracy forums speculated this was a mafia-styled takedown meant to break T.I. and send a message to every powerful family in music. Each theory was darker than the last, and none of them could be ruled out. As night fell once more, the Harris family's nightmare continued. Doctors whispered that King's body was slipping into multi-organ failure. Every machine beep felt like a countdown. Every hour seemed to push him closer to the edge. His parents refused to leave his side. T.I. paced endlessly, whispering prayers. Tiny held her son's hand so tightly, nurses had to ask her to step back.
However, fans clicked play expecting reassurance, hoping to see a sign of recovery. Instead, what they saw made their stomachs drop. King Harris, son of rap legends T.I. and Tiny, was strapped to wires, preparing for risky brain surgery. His young body looked weak, vulnerable, and surrounded by machines keeping him alive. But in a flash, alarms blared, nurses screamed, and chaos broke out. The grainy clip showed a man dressed head to toe in black, moving like he had rehearsed this very moment. He didn't hesitate, didn't flinch, he went straight for the machines. Security doors that should have been locked were somehow open. Within seconds, his hands were on the wires, feeding life into King's fragile body. The footage was unmistakable. This wasn't random, this was deliberate. And as one nurse tried to stop him, the intruder shoved her to the ground as if she weighed nothing. Seconds later, the monitors flatlined. Millions replayed the scene on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and the reaction was universal. This didn't just feel like an attack, it felt like betrayal. If the son of T.I. and Tiny could be targeted in an ICU, inside what was supposed to be one of the safest and most guarded places in any hospital, what chance did anyone else have? The fallout inside the hospital was immediate. Tiny Harris collapsed when her son's monitors spiked, screaming so loud that staff froze mid-step. Witnesses said her entire body shook as she begged doctors not to let her baby die. T.I., usually known for his tough composure, erupted with rage. He stormed through the hallway, shouting, "This wasn't no accident. Somebody planned this." His eyes burned red, his voice thundered, and within minutes, reporters captured the outburst on camera. That single statement was enough to ignite a wildfire online. Social media transformed into chaos. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag pray for King, hashtag justice for King, hashtag Harris Hospital setup. Fans demanded answers, demanding to know how an intruder could possibly enter one of the most restricted wards in any hospital. Others began whispering darker theories. Was this revenge? A long-standing feud finally striking back? Or was it bigger than that? Something designed to break the Harris legacy forever? As speculation grew, hospital staff began whispering among themselves. Multiple security cameras had mysteriously cut out just minutes before the masked intruder appeared. Except for the one camera that leaked. Guards on duty were missing at the exact time of the break-in. One claimed he was on a smoke break, another said he'd been called upstairs, but no logbook ever confirmed it. To workers inside, the entire situation smelled staged. To fans, it screamed inside job. But what cut deepest wasn't just the footage. It was what King's sister, Zonique Pullins, confessed afterward. Witnesses said she broke down in tears in front of her parents, sobbing, "He's been crying out for help and nobody wanted to listen." Those words shattered the Harris family. Tiny crumbled into guilt. T.I. froze, his pride cracking into regret for the first time in years. And in that moment, their grief turned against each other. What should have been private pain turned into a circus. Gossip blogs blasted headlines within minutes. Harris family explodes inside hospital. Atlanta transformed into a shrine. Fans crowded sidewalks outside the hospital, some kneeling in prayer, others live streaming their tears. Candlelight vigils appeared overnight. A crowd of teenagers chanted, "Wake up, King!" so loudly that nurses claimed the sounds seeped through the hospital windows. King Harris, once bold, brash, and unfiltered, had become something much bigger than a rapper's son. He was now a symbol of betrayal, danger, and the crushing cost of fame. The more people rewatched the ICU video, the darker it felt. At one moment, the masked man seemed to pause and glare straight into the surviving camera, as if mocking the entire world. Then static cut the screen before returning to chaos. Analysts online dissected every frame. His movements were tactical, almost trained. He touched only specific wires, avoided blind spots, and moved with precision as if he already knew the floor plan. This wasn't clumsy. This was choreography. And then came the first audio leak. A shaky recording captured from a nurse's phone surfaced online. The clip was only seconds long, but it shredded millions of hearts. Alarms screamed in the background. Nurses cried out. A doctor's voice shouted, "He's crashing! He's crashing!" And beneath it all, the raw sound of Tiny's cries echoed. Fans who listened said they couldn't sleep after hearing it. For the first time, the world didn't just watch King Harris's near death, it heard it. By dawn, the hospital was under siege. Protesters gathered outside the gates, demanding answers. Why weren't ICU doors locked? Why did the cameras fail? Why did guards vanish? Rumors of bribes, betrayal, and secret payouts swirled like wildfire. And then, the darkest twist yet. Fans uncovered an old Instagram live clip from King himself, filmed just weeks before the attack. In it, he half-joked, "If something happens, just know they planned it." At the time, people laughed it off. Now, it replays like prophecy. Had he seen this coming? As the family clung to hope, another notification lit up millions of phones. A new leak. But this time, it wasn't ICU footage. It was audio from the Harris family's own waiting room. No alarms, no machines, just the sound of a family tearing apart while their son fought for his life. Tiny's voice trembled, crying, "He's been spiraling, Clifford, and you didn't want to see it." T.I.'s voice, thunderous but shaky, snapped back, "Don't put this on me. You baby him too much. You ignore the truth because you can't face it." Fans who pressed play weren't just watching entertainment, they were listening to devastation. The Harris empire was no longer a fortress, it was a spectacle. Their private grief had become the internet's newest obsession, dissected, replayed, and judged by millions. Public outrage soon spilled out into the streets. Protesters gathered outside the hospital, holding signs that read ICU or execution chamber and chanting, "Justice for King." Some shouted through megaphones, "If King Harris isn't safe in an ICU, then none of us are safe." Police were eventually called in to control the crowds, but every attempt to silence the protests only added fuel to the fire. And then came the most shocking twist yet. A leaked audio file allegedly recorded during a hospital board meeting surfaced online. In the clip, a male voice says coldly, "We cannot allow this to go public. If the family finds out, we're finished." Another voice responds, "Then make sure no more files get out." That was all the public needed to hear. The outrage doubled overnight. The scandal eventually reached federal investigators. Agents stormed the hospital, seizing computers, questioning staff, and combing through medical records. What they found only confirmed the suspicions. Blood samples had been swapped, CCTV cameras had been disabled at crucial times, and most shocking of all, investigators traced large payments, tens of thousands of dollars, sent to accounts linked to hospital employees. The money came from offshore sources, making it even harder to track who was behind it. But the trail was there, and it pointed to something far bigger than one rogue nurse or doctor. But the most devastating revelation came when prosecutors announced that someone close to the Harris family had allegedly tipped off the people behind the poisoning. Someone who had been seen visiting King in the ICU. Someone the family had trusted. The courtroom gasped when the name was read aloud. Fans online erupted with disbelief and anger. How could someone so close to the family betray them like this? That single betrayal shattered any remaining sense of security. Tiny later testified in court, her voice cracking as she sobbed, "We trusted them. We trusted the system. And they tried to kill my son." Her words brought the entire courtroom to tears. Clips of her testimony spread across social media, sparking new hashtags like #TinySpeaksTruth and #JusticeForKing. At this point, the case had spiraled far beyond one hospital scandal. FBI agents hinted that powerful industry figures may be tied to the payments made to hospital staff. Documents suggested a web of corruption that extended far beyond the ICU. Suddenly, this wasn't just about a young man poisoned in a hospital bed. This was about corruption at the highest levels, a chilling reminder that money and influence can determine who lives and who dies. And through it all, King Harris remained in that hospital bed, hooked up to machines, fighting for his life. His future uncertain, his family shattered, his fans heartbroken but determined to fight for him. So now, the questions haunting millions remain unanswered. Who ordered this? Was it enemies in the music industry? Was it a financial plot? Was it a political message meant to destroy T.I. and his family? Or was it someone closer than anyone could have ever imagined? One thing is undeniable. King Harris is no longer just a young man in an ICU. He has become a symbol of betrayal, corruption, and the horrifying truth that even in the most protected spaces, you can still be hunted. His story is no longer just personal tragedy. It is a reflection of a system so broken, so corrupted, that even hospitals can become battlefields. The nation waits, trembling, furious, demanding answers. Every second that passes, King Harris fights for his life while the truth continues to claw its way into the light. And the haunting thought remains, if this is what they were willing to do to King Harris, how many other stories have been buried, silenced, or erased before the world ever knew the truth? This is not just another headline. This is a tragedy that will haunt fans, family, and the industry forever. What do you think? Was this truly an inside job? Or is this part of something even bigger? Something we've only begun to uncover? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Share this video so more people know the truth, and don't forget to subscribe for updates as this story unfolds. Because one thing is certain, this story is far from over.